get into a bit of it as we go forward. I thought just to start and kind of let you know what's going on. I've done a ton of things and I tried to condense it down and just talk about the horse related stuff. So I'm happy to dive into any weird areas that you're interested in afterwards. But just in the interest of time, I thought I'd just kind of cruise through my journey through the industry, um, the different styles and types of career pathways that you'll see reflected. And then I've kind of, from my own personal perspective, all of this is just my own personal perspective. So maybe that other people feel differently, but I kind of collected the skills relevant to all of those positions, the skills that I saw as needed to exceed at all of those positions. And then separately, skills for you, which is a little separate from horses or equine necessarily, or even your career, but I think really important for you to keep in mind when you're thinking about your professional life. And then I'm happy to answer any questions. So my journey through the industry, I tried to get a lot of pictures and stuff so that it wouldn't be too boring. So I'm going to cruise through some of these slides pretty quickly. And Bree, I hope you'll go ahead and just stop me if needed, if there's any questions or things don't seem clear. I just wanted to start out by saying there's two different types of pathways. A lot of a lot of people in successful positions, you'll notice they're focused and they're clear. From day one, they wanted to be, for sake of this conversation, we'll say the Olympic gold medalist, and they, just dug in and they did the grind and they got it. And it looks really linear, right? It looks like this straight shot. Um, there's also an awful lot in my story of kind of swirling around. I have some clear focused goals, but also really enjoyed taking opportunities as they came to me. And I think in the end, it's worked out really well for me. This, again, different personalities are, benefit from different styles, but I have a bit of both of this in my story, and I don't think anyone should feel any kind of guilt or like one is better than the other. So among these different pathways, also, I had kind of a traditional career track and I had a non-essential career track. And what I mean by that basically is this stuff over on the left. The traditional career track is when I was in horses and horses were paying my bills. It was my primary job. I worked very hard at it in both contexts, and there are pros and cons for both. Over on the right, you can see kind of the pros and cons of if you're doing this. I don't want to say it's as a hobby or, a non-essential. I didn't even like that really. But essentially, you're not reliant on your equine and industry involvement to survive. It's not paying your bills, right? So the pros and cons on both, I think, depend on your individual preference. Some of us, the pros of the traditional career track is it was your dream. A lot of us, kind of woke up and we're like, we're horse people. We're going to be horse people forever. And I just want to ride my horse. I don't want to deal with people. I just want to be a horse person. So there's a lot of these, advantages. So the pros to making your career and getting your living in the equine industry is, honestly, your horse expenses are likely to be less if you own a horse. There's bartering, there's owing people favors, there's a lot of give and take in the industry, and accommodating. You can work off lessons, you can, do all those kinds of things that makes the cost of ownership or, participating in the industry a little bit less. And that's certainly something to consider. Horses are not cheap. Again, you're physically active, you're outside, you're moving around. There aren't a lot of really, with the exception of, say, a veterinarian, there's not a lot of like requirements to keep you from starting early. You'll see in my journey, I started quite early. You can do apprenticeships that are informal and work around things. You can get an early start and just get moving on the fun stuff. And that's great. Horses all day. The cons, your benefits, typically, I've noticed the industry's getting better. When I was, really in it, man, there were no benefits, right? I never had health insurance. I never had retirement, a 401k. I had a paycheck that was okay or not, depending on where I was at in my career. And, I did what I could with it. Mental health also, part of benefits, the mental health aspect, a lot of them, when especially I'm thinking about the veterinary industry, if your living is in the veterinary industry, there's a lot of documentation right now. The mental health aspect of that is not good. You don't get to interact with clients when they're in their best and happiest, right? They're very scared for their animals oftentimes, and that doesn't come out well for you. There's a lot of demands on you, and that can be really stressful. If you, over on the right, if you exist in the horse industry and it's not paying your bills, you can live two lives at once. You'll see, there is no point in time through my journey where I have one job. Um, and I've so many life experiences because of it. There's a bit of job security there. There's a backup career. Like, I actually can be more courageous in my actions currently with the New England Dressage Association. I'm thinking especially because this doesn't pay my bills. I can do what I think is right. I can stand by my convictions, and it's not going to impact whether or not I can put food on the table or get the vet for my horse when I need it. The horses stay exclusively fun. It's never work. There's just not that opportunity to really kind of be a grind. And the cons are it just may not match your goals, plain and simple. If you really dug in and you wanted your life to be horses and horses and horses, this isn't that kind of sucks if you have to go to a day job. There are days when it's nice weather out and I don't want to be inside. I get it. Horses cost time and money. And if you're already working 40 hours a week, that is not usually your most energetic time. So that's certainly, a bit of a priority. And if you move out of the equine industry and get, this day job and start this other side career, it can be hard to come back. You have, if I wanted to come back and be a manager now, I have expenses and a life built that requires me to travel. And I, couldn't really come back to that with the life I have right now. It's a little bit harder. So it's all stuff to think about. None of it is perfect. And all of it matches certain points in your life or, certain contexts that you may find yourself in. So this is my experience in the equine industry throughout all four of those kind of quadrants. We're going to move through pretty quickly. I tried to get a lot of pictures so as not to bore you, and I'm just going to move really fast through how I got to all these places because I want to get to what's hopefully more useful to you at the end, which is stuff that it may apply to everyone's journey and not just mine. So the skills I hope you keep an eye out for as I move through that are relevant to every single position that I've had are these, and we'll come back to this slide, but it's empathy, it's listening, it's clear and direct communications, it's curiosity, it's attention to detail, dependability, project management. Everything's a project, right? Like if you're rehabbing a horse, that's a project. If you need to muck 12 stalls, that's a project. There's allocations, and some projects are more complicated than others. Budgeting, that's not just money, folks. That is your time. That is your patience. That is your empathy. That is the energy you have this week, today, this hour. You've got to kind of really be thoughtful about where you spend your resources. And your relationships in this industry. Everyone says, the horse industry is a small one. It's right. Everybody is everywhere. You need people. So just keep an eye out for these kinds of things. And again, we'll come back to this. So I'm going to move kind of quickly now. So to start out, I was lucky. I had horsey parents. My father taught round penning and equine behavior in the late 70s, early 80s, kind of before it really took off as a business. And he was a professor at a university and, was kind of, able to take me to class with him all the time. So I learned round penning very young. My mother was a fantastic influence on my life. She took me riding, younger than this. She really, really prioritized it. She actually made our family home the middle of the horse pasture. Our entire property was fenced in and the horses just grazed, and we went out and caught something and rode it. And she loved that, no one could get to the front door without, if they were worried about horses getting to them. So she really loved the little moat that she had made with the pasture. And I grew up kind of riding at the college that my father taught at. So I was able to have access to a large facility. Luckily, this was before the time of liabilities really being talked about, and had a lot of experiences there on a huge variety of scenarios. We had a thoroughbred associate's degree at the time. So there was a lot of stallions and foals, and there were students everywhere. It was a really busy environment. There were a lot of different classes to kind of run in and out of. They ran a therapeutic riding program. A lot of it, though, there in the beginning was thoroughbred breeding and thoroughbred training. And then when they're off the track and coming back, retraining. So here you can see a couple friends in my out at Timonium, Maryland for the Fasig-Tipton yearling sale. Some of these I don't have pictures. I've actually been out of town since I was asked to speak and wasn't able to get to my physical photographs. So you'll get a little crash course in how photography used to look too as we move through here. As the horses were coming back off the track, I picked up eventing. So I was, young and tiny and able to help, get on the thoroughbreds a lot, but then also, brave enough or pretending to be brave enough to get on these horses when they came off the track and learned how to event. So this is out at Larkin Hill. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of Valatia, New York. She's got a great farm out there. Eventing. And then also around this time, it was about 14 or so, and I started kind of picking up side hustles, right? So this is where I started actually making money at this. So we had Victory Hill Farm. My parents were so patient. I went out 3 or 4 days a week and stayed there, and it was a facility that was entirely thoroughbred layups and brood mares. So horses that were perhaps at Saratoga and were injured and needed to lay up would come to us. It was kind of a dangerous job, right? You have a horse, a racehorse, who's bundled full of energy, ready to go, 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 go. They're injured, and now they have to stay in a stall for a set period of time. And when they come out, they must walk and be calm. It's not easy. And then bringing them back to racing fit, you hop on them and tell them they need to walk or trot. That's not entertaining to them. They want to run. So that was really a lot of, kind of controlled and a really great and unique experience for me. I also started working at a quarter horse halter barn. So lots of babies, they were breeding and they were lunging. It was a really strict lunging regimen because they have a very specific, conformation and body type that they're going for. A lot of nutrition, broodmare and stallions, again, a lot of handling, of clients, of people, of expectations, of horses, a lot of emotions. And then I picked up gig farm sitting also. So I was kind of, with that dependability and really making sure that I had attention to detail, I could really manage a lot of different facilities, and people started recommending me to their friends, and I made a pretty good living doing that, prior to, this is, middle school into high school. So really never too early to start getting your name out there. It was brought to my attention that an adult amateur dressage rider owned a summer farm near my parents' house, and they needed some backup help for their groom. And until then, I had been an event rider, right? You just get through the dressage so that you can go jump things. It's just in the way. And I thought I knew dressage, and I didn't. This is my first kind of encounter with a real dressage horse. And it was so challenging and such a discipline of such exacting expectations and consistent perfection that it really kind of drew me in. So I kind of got suckered into dressage right then and there and didn't look back. And as I moved forward with them and really kind of dove into things, her groom was headed back to Germany, and she asked if I wanted to come with her in the winter time, where she went down to Wellington, Florida. I think I was 16 or 17 at this time. And did I want to come with her and do that full time? Of course, absolutely. I'm always the person who wants to want to go do the things. And then if a dog infringing on here, mind me. And then Maggie later. And then as she came back a week or two later and said, actually, the farm that she goes to and boards in Florida, their manager was leaving as well. And did I want to manage that whole facility while I was down there with her anyway? And I said yes. And that was really kind of one of those life-changing moments. So I came down to White Fences in Wellington, Florida, which I didn't know at the time, but sure do know now. That is kind of the mecca for anyone looking to compete internationally for dressage, for polo, and for jumping. It's kind of Disney. It's kind of Disney World for horse people in the winter. So really a bit of a crash course. You can see it's a really nice, well-kept facility. That broom should not be there. Nice and airy, very high quality horses. This picture I hate to share, but this actually is relevant. I'm not wearing a helmet, and Courtney King Dye just down the street from us had a training accident. She was on the Olympic pathway while I was there, had a training accident. Nothing crazy happened. It wasn't any big deal thing. She fell, she hit her head, and I believe she is only just now returning. This was, 2001 or 2002, and I think she's only just now returning to potentially be able to ride in Paralympics now. And it was a very big deal. Before then, dressage riders still had top hats and things like that. And unbeknownst to me, this little organization up in New England called the New England Dressage Association was the first in the country to put their foot down and say helmets are required. You may not show in hot top hats. The safety and health of our riders is more important than the aesthetics or the tradition or anything like that, and required helmets from there on out. So I show this because there's so much that have come so far since then, and so has the industry. And I think that's really important. I was also very lucky to land at Royal Viking Farm where I did, because Helena Klukowski is a Swedish adult amateur who owned the farm at the place, was just an absolute, has been a second mother. I call her my godmother. To me. She really mentored, and I think you'll see my story throughout, my journey. Mentorship and paying it back and paying it forward is a huge part of this industry. There's just so much influence you can have on people, and so many ways you can help them. Helena had just had a career-ending injury before I had come down there, so she put me on horses. She's not able to ride herself. It has never been since then. Put me on horses I had no business riding, and really helped me advance my riding. I'm going to get a little bit personal here in this part of the story. I was young. I had come down there, to move. That was actually my apartment window. I lived right here in the barn, just day in and day out, cleaning tack, mucking stalls. It was a dream come true. I was young. I was in a relationship that was not as healthy as it should be. Is kind of a story everyone hears. And I prioritized that in my personal life over what could have potentially been an international career. And I don't have regrets. I don't wallow in it. I just want to call out that, a lot of journeys and what you have to learn from are mistakes. And this was something, I didn't know about how to balance a work-life, scenario. I didn't know what was an acceptable, I was growing. I was a kid. I had been horses my whole life, not people. So that's certainly something, I've learned to make accommodations for, is just mistakes in life. So I did leave. I left this farm. I came back up to New York, and I got a job here as this priority shift where I wanted to prioritize my personal life. And I got a job as a veterinary technician at the equine clinic at Oakencroft. So I don't have pictures from there. Again, I think actually I heard a rumor that one of my old coworkers might be on the call tonight, but um, a vet clinic, 13 counties, ambulatory horses only, other than acupuncture. We had some dogs come into the clinic. I started as a driver for Dr. Rick Lesser, who owned the practice. I worked in the reception as a receptionist in the office, and then as a vet tech. We had a huge Morgan herd, so I was right on the brink of when they were starting to do embryo transfers. So I landed right in the middle of, you know, this incredible scenario where this woman had all these horses and she loved them, and she would do embryo transfers out of these very, very talented mares. And I would go to the registry and try to register this new foal we've had, except the same mare has now had 3 babies in the same year, and their registry just did not know what to make of it. And that was the first time I had an experience with the organizations that our industries run off of, and them just not being prepared for the realities of where the industry was at that time. So that's kind of something I think we'll always run into. Organizations don't move as fast as, industries or science, or the way the way people can move along in an industry. So it was a great experience. We did performance horses, we did meadow muffins, we did, the veterinary students, how they did lambs. They were lambing in the clinic. There was just so much more than I thought there would be. And there were a lot of personalities. I'll mention again, clients coming in and out with injured, sick horses, and very concerned. Vets have big personalities. It was a lot of management there. And I'll say again, this was a time of my life where I was learning to be a professional, learning to be a person. I made some mistakes, and I think this job of all of them got probably the worst of me. And that's something I'll say also. You're gonna, make mistakes, and value and take advantage of the fact that the world is so connected now that you can go back to these people and apologize. Helena, I left. She was disappointed when I left, and we've talked since then. I spend weeks at her place, and, have been able to apologize and thank her for seeing what she saw in me and giving me more to do than I thought I deserved at the time, and really changing my life and opening my eyes to what an international, caliber facility looked like. And the same with the vet clinic, just wishing, thanking them for the opportunity, and taking those lessons forward with me in life. So the pathway shift here, when I left the vet clinic, I shifted, and this is where in my career, horses will no longer pay the bills. I took a job to be a little bit less stressful, managing a pharmaceutical manufacturing operation, observing, managing the quality control. And that from there on out, the horses aren't paying the bills. They pay some bills here and there, but they're not the main reason that I can pay the rent. So it's a bit of a different experience from here on out, and that was fine. Here on out, I'm an owner. I own my first horse, Irish thoroughbred chestnut mare with all of the personality stereotypes that you expect from that statement. And I made a lot of mistakes with this mare. I learned a lot. There's a lot of whew, things when you look back, you look back at your first animal or your first job and you think about all the things you would do differently. And it's tempting to make regrets or feel badly about that. But in reality, what you have to do is look back. And because you have regrets, that means you wouldn't do the same thing now. It means that you have learned in your career, even if you didn't notice it at the time. And that's good. You shouldn't look back and think you're exactly the same person as you were back then, because that's a waste of time. So I learned a lot about riding, about managing, about owning, just being a boarder, being a good boarder, minding my business, not getting involved, being someone who could take feedback and move through the world that way. It's also expensive to own horses. So I ended up taking a job managing the facility that I had boarded my mare at. And it kind of bartered against the rent and the board. So that was really helpful at the time. And also, as I was working through, still round penning, still doing, behavioral modification training, there was a problem horse at the farm that was given to me for free. And she did have some quirks, but I would argue that this was the nicest horse I ever owned and may ever not own. But unfortunately, early in my life, and two horses are more expensive than one. I was not able to hang on to both of them for very long and had to kind of let them go. And throughout this, I was, moving jobs and kind of getting my life in order. Leaving a bad relationship and rebuilding kind of my life, and took a bit of a pause from horse ownership until I started just kind of following my best friend who had a training business as well around in my spare time. So I had my job, and then, kind of for fun, it was kind of like I would go to work with Megan. And she had a different set of clients. She was knew how to drive, draft horses. She worked cattle with horses, and it was just kind of a different scene. She did have some behavioral challenge clients. You can see this little gelding here that I was helping with. Actually ended up having this colt given to me because he was so difficult. And I was foolish enough to make some progress with him. Ended up owning him, and he went on to have a little career with someone else. But it was really kind of just keeping my foot in the door, just reminding myself I'm a horse person. I'm helping my friend. I'm staying in this, even though I don't own and I don't work. And then we made a connection. Again, these relationships are really important, with a young woman around the corner from us who had a big farm, and some lovely borders. And we started to kind of put some little projects together. So we started, doing round penning clinics with the support of my father, who, both Brie and I actually trained with. While he was still alive, we were doing those. We connected with the county youth commission, and we would do the youth council would send kids out to do trail rides, and we had nice horses, thankfully, and we're able to take them out and really kind of introduce people to the industry. And it was a county subsidized program, so kind of a non-traditional moneymaker. There were a couple of non-traditional money-making schemes we kind of came up with here, which were fun. We also connected with Wounded Warrior Project, and we were able to put together a huge trail ride for a number of injured veterans who had no horse experience. And as you can see from this support staff over here, I mean, it was a big undertaking. It was not a super long trail ride, but man, it was really cool. They really appreciated it. The feedback you got was fantastic. We donated a lot of services, but the organization also, paid for some things. And that was really heartwarming and really helped to build a lot of community in that farm. And we started to do other things too. We started to do kind of gymkhana nights where you could come down and, we had professional barrel racers come, and we would, do practice like that, but also come with your horse, bring your English tack, try a barrel. Western people, we would set up, some jumps and take them out, on the cross country course and let them try some things. It was just really wonderful. People would kind of pay a flat rate, trailer in, just do fun things. and hang out and chill for the, for the time. And that was really surprisingly, a good moneymaker there. Um, and it was a lot of fun. We built, bigger client base. We had then gotten, some theme horse shows together. This was one of our Halloween horse shows that we didn't really take too seriously, although some of these costumes were taken quite seriously. I hated judging the costume classes. That was my most dreaded job. They were great. We also had the fuzzy horse show, so it kind of launched the season in the freezing cold, with an informal schooling show, and just let everyone who had, come to the Gymkhana nights kind of go ahead and try it for real. So had a lot of, fun games that way. And then because they had the space at the farm, established a nonprofit and started to launch an annual like a warrior, like a mud race kind of thing. You see those like extreme races that are fundraisers out there. We did one at the farm, and the kind of unique thing was that, we would be the outriders. We would ride and check on everyone and make sure they were coming through on the horses. And the competitors just really loved that. So it was, again, a veteran focused event, and not too often you get to socialize your horse to a tank. So that was, really fun all around. And I mean, a massive amount of people came. So that's something, there's not a lot of space out there in the world anymore. These farms are kind of getting developed and moved in. So if you have space and you can run something like this, it's really neat to get community partners and see how the community can help subsidize your business and get joined in with all these kinds of partnerships. I had also decided to go back to school. I had gone for undergrad and just really fell in love with, learning. I kind of always had a learning mindset. This was a beekeeping class I took. These are all hives of bees shipping into the Hudson Bee Supply, downstate New York. I mean, billion bees. We were teaching horses how to break for driving. Again, that's not something I'm super familiar with. And then I also loved actually like agricultural policy and classes and things. I really kind of latched onto it. And of course, I must say, at the horse barn, fell in love with this handsome chestnut gentleman who will come up again later. But he was, one of the instances at the school where my previous experience really came through again. So my veterinary experience helped because this was a horse that was prone to laminitis. And for a very long time, it was kind of thought that he had abscesses, and it turns out like very, very delicate metabolic syndrome with this horse. So for those of you unfamiliar, like think about people with diabetes, how their feet will swell. He essentially, I mean, this is incorrect, but to think of it, he has diabetes, but when his feet swell, the hoof wall does not expand. So the blood flow, as the skin inside the hoof swells, the blood flow gets cut off. It's very painful, and the flesh inside the hoof starts to die, and the bone will actually fall down in the foot if you don't catch it soon enough. So he was actually a year on stall rest. He was one of my special projects, and my veterinary experience really helped with that. And I ended up taking him, but we'll talk about that later. I got a really incredible shot at an internship with Cornell Cooperative Extension. Worked with Jen Stevens, and we did a bunch of events that were really cool. Everyone I'm sure has seen the fair, or the horse symposium that's put together. I know Bree worked on that for a while. I did not teach kids ever, and we did an ag days, and I'm not sure if they still do it, but I remember it was close to 700 children in school buses showing up just to learn about different types of agriculture, different kinds of animals, all kinds of cool stuff. It was super overwhelming, a really rewarding day, and it really kind of solidified how much I love teaching. Even if 700 children, not so much, but teaching in general, that was a really cool way to see if your teaching methods worked, if you could hold everyone's attention. And then we also did the Sunday on the Farm, which I understand is an event that doesn't run any longer, but we had 4,000 people from the community come through one dairy farm in the course of an afternoon, and get to see all kinds of different agriculture things, have ice cream, see the dairy farm, stuff like that. And that was really cool. Also, community education, I really, really loved that. There were study abroad programs also, and I would really recommend, I know they're expensive. They can be really hard to get scholarships for. I would really recommend to everyone, save your pennies, figure out a way, be creative. The international trips are just so incredible. And I don't mean that they are really fun, but they're super educational as well. So here we are at a layover in Iceland. with Icelandic ponies. You can see the pea gravel that they're, and this pipe fencing, that is normal turnout in Iceland for these ponies. They just, the gravel, some of them are big river rock footing, and they just run around in that perfectly happy, and then, go out on trail rides, in the wilderness. And that is really fascinating to see. It's very educational. It's a different, every aspect of agriculture was different and fascinating there. And then ended up over in the Netherlands, which I don't know if you can see super well here, but this is actually a freestall barn with horses. So here in America, you see this generally with dairy cows, where they're free and wandering. They did that with horses there, and the horses were actually, they were doing a lot of research on it, that the horses were happier, they'd become healthier, moving around a lot. There were areas with thicker bedding that they could lay down in, but I mean, that was fascinating to see. They also had a robot going around to push all of the manure to the side, so you didn't have to muck out this huge space. It was delightful. Got to see the KWPN, which is the Dutch Warm Blood Registry. These are their young horses coming in. They have performance testing before they're allowed to be registered. So a certain level of registry. So you can't just breed a Dutch Warm Blood and say it's a Dutch Warm Blood, we're ready to go. You have to train it up. It has to show athletic capability. It has to show proper conformation. It has to show a willingness and a good temperament in order to pass through these testings. So we were able to see, I'm not supposed to share those publicly, so that's just for you guys, to see those images. We also got to go see The Hague, which is, where the Geneva Conventions are. It was kind of a big thing. They have royal stables there, and just another level of horse care, and a lot of gold and polishing, and like the pomp and ceremony. They had carriages that looked like Cinderella had arrived in them. Just an aspect of the equine industry that I was unaware of. Like, I don't know how to polish gold fastenings, and all of that is super important in something like that. There's all kinds of levels of care. We also learned how to how to shoe horses and how to trim feet on cadavers. So they don't use nippers, or at least where I was. I don't want to say this generally across Europe, but not nippers. They, if you can see here, they use mallets that tap kind of little chisels around the edge of the foot. And that, I've never seen that before. So we got to try that out. Obviously, farriery is just incredibly talented and a lot of skill involved, and that gave me a whole nother appreciation. So then, my undergraduate career comes to a close. I'm the age of 30 before I get my undergrad degree. So it's never too late. And it's not I'm sorry. Nope. Okay. So I decided I'm not done with academia, and I decided I want to go to graduate school. I want to learn more about teaching. I want to stay kind of in this mindset of learning. And I get accepted at West Virginia University, and all of my life I wanted to be a gold medal Olympian, and I wanted to get written up in the Chronicle of the Horse. And I did get written up in the Chronicle of the Horse, but not for riding. So that was kind of one of those, we talked about the career pathways and how the squirrely route is another way to go. This is, a bucket list item that I didn't see how it was actually going to come together for me. So I was able to write my thesis, which was 313 pages, I think, on a huge survey that the United States Dressage Federation let me send out to all of their members. So I wanted to see not just what educational opportunities were available to them, but what educational opportunities they thought were available to them. So there are things that the USDF provides to us to learn from, but if membership or the country doesn't know that they exist or isn't close enough to access them, or they're not available virtually and they can't get there, it doesn't count for them, right? So I sent out a massive survey to 8,000 people, and really was able to, no big surprise, find out that the biggest barriers to success in the country were financial difficulties, a lack of educational opportunities, which a lot of that is that geography. In the United States, we compete across a huge space that other countries, particularly in Europe, don't have to deal with. They have a lot of in Europe, you have a lot of really highly rated shows in a very close area to you. If you are a competitor in Wyoming and you are trying to compete in dressage, you're having a rough go. You have to trailer a ton of the way. There's so many challenges. It's competitive challenges were also mentioned. So, a lot of challenges getting to the competition, believing that, you could get to different judges. You have to see different judges throughout the course of the year, and do they come to your area? Travel and locations, and then time. So it was really fascinating. And I just loved the fact that I was allowed to just do what I wanted for my thesis. This was graduate school is a great place to go to just kind of be a nerd about only the things you want to be a nerd about. I really recommend it for anyone who wants to nerd out. So I had actually won a prize for my research on that. I also, grad school is just an entire world unto itself. I took entomology at the recommendation of I would not have chosen to take entomology. I will say it's one of the classes that stuck with me the most. If you if you want to be involved, you should take entomology. There's so much to it. I also am not a math person. I'm terrified by, I don't know, calculating the tip. I don't like to do that. I took statistics. Grad school challenged a lot of barriers. It made me into a person I didn't know I was. Just trying to meet these expectations, and luckily had really, really great classmates and cohort that I'm still close with today. We did statistical analyses. We actually went out. West Virginia University is very, very big on community-based learning. So you go out and you do service for the community and for the state in order to learn. So we would do evaluations of after-school programs. We would help them develop better and more impactful educational programming. I did cartography and GIS systems, so helping to map if there was a disaster, where would you try to get resources into an area first based on the hillside and the topography, and using a computer to make that map to show people, where the water is going to come down, where the roadways are, and how that's going to wash out. We use community-powered research and development. So that's where you go into the community. You don't tell them what you want to study. You go into a community with a group of people who have asked for help, and you say, what do you need? And you don't assume that you know what is needed, because you don't live there. You're not them. So you interview them, and you're going to hear about their frustrations and their lack of belief that you can help them. And you really need to be humble and quiet and listen, and then go back and do what you can to try to help these communities get better, better resources. Maybe they need a grant to fix a road. They need, better trucks, to help with their food, the food pantry, things like that. There's all kinds of things out there. There's a lot of natural resource management programs in West Virginia too. There's the oil and gas and fracking is very big down there, and the impact on the communities is heavily researched. And ethnographic research, which is, again, shut up, be quiet, go in these places and just observe. Just try and immerse yourself in these communities and see what's happening. And that all of this relates back to horses. If you are managing horses and you are trying to see what's going wrong, you're going to go sit in that stall. You're going to figure out, what is this horse going through? Why is it off its feed? What is happening? All of this is super valuable for horses. It all comes back. Grad school is not cheap. So if you do decide to get into higher education, I really, really suggest that you be crafty about it. I found out that West Virginia University, if you are an employee, they would cover your tuition. So I got myself a job answering phones in the dean's office. It was very similar to the work I had done at Cornell Cooperative Extension, organizing these, organizing these events and getting letters out, and, advertising and talking to the community and connecting them with the people they needed to talk to find out what was going on. And that support group was really helpful for my research as well. Grad school is stressful. So if you're going to do grad school, really, really stick with your friends, and make sure you've got a good support system when you go in there, and have a plan. So that's kind of my rotation through. Now we've gotten to about here. What am I doing now? So now I have gotten into rare breed advocacy. This horse that TS that I got from my undergrad program, you saw him a little bit ago. He has that metabolic issue. I ended up buying him from the college, and discovered after I purchased him, that he's a Bajoni, which is a Russian cavalry horse, and they are a very rare breed. There are, I believe, 40 or maybe less in the United States at this time. There is a friend of mine just bred one remaining stallion in the United States. It's really been fascinating. I am a big advocate for these horses just because of, my personal attachment to this horse who has changed my life, but also through this whole world has really I've really gotten into the rare breeds in general, and this applies to any species. There's a lot of concern about biodiversity on the planet. I'm just going to focus on equine breeds here, but you can look this up. I mean, insects are terrifying. The amount of insects that exist on this planet compared to who had been here before. Everything is just kind of really, really crashing. So worldwide, there are about 734 equine breeds. This data is taken from the FAO, which is the Food and Agriculture Organization. Sorry. And only 22 of those 734 equine breeds are not considered at risk. So 256 are solidly like endangered or, in some are extinct, right? So, I mean, these are animals that are disappearing. 465 statuses are unknown because we don't even have functioning registries to track the animals and see where they are. So of that 465, it is unknown how many of them exist. Those that do exist, what their numbers are. There are, in the big world, in the performance world, these big breeding farms, they talk a lot about the challenges of the narrowing gene pool and wanting to get, kind of revitalized bloodlines in there. Unfortunately, they're not going to support rare breed stock unless the performance of the animal is proven first. So if you have a rare breed animal and you go out and you take your Bajoni to the Olympics, that horse is very popular. The reason we have those 40 horses here in the United States is because a Bajoni did go to the Olympics, and that was a very, very valued stallion, and he bred, unfortunately, 20 years ago. So now, because another one wasn't taken and campaigned, that has gone out of fashion, basically. So there's a lot of kind of cool kid politics at play for breeding, but long term, it's really going to damage the industry. And I don't mean just dressage, I don't mean just equine, I mean the whole world. All of the breeding focused industries really need to be focused on this, the narrowing gene pool and the lack of biodiversity, because what we're doing essentially is inbreeding all of our horses by saying they're, purebred. So this, challenge of getting economics of industry behind the breed preservation efforts has been a lot on my mind. I can't say that we're anywhere successful right now, but I certainly try and stay involved. The Food and Agriculture Organization has so much data. If you're interested in this, you can go to their website and you can look up any country and any species, and it will give you a list of the breeds that they have registered in that country. I'm actually looking at this, I've never heard of a broomtail. So there's a ton, if you just look at what exists in the United States, and then they'll actually give you, this is the Akaltiki, which I am not pronouncing correctly. I have to find the proper pronunciation of that, but this is one of the foundation, this was the breed that was recently discovered to be the actual foundation of the thoroughbreds instead of the Arabians that they thought they were. It was this breed. So, and this, they are one of the most at-risk breeds that we know of so far. So it's really fascinating. There's a lot there to go, and I can't say that I have the answers, but that's a challenge that I'm leaning into. I also now am on the board for the New England Dressage Association, who I talked about a little bit and was connected with through my master's research. So I got made the director of membership, and I'll actually mention both of these. All of this stuff is volunteer capacity. So these are not paid positions. This is just what I do because I love it. I volunteered to be on their board in 2019 as the director of membership. So kind of the person who talks to the members and advocates for their needs with the rest of the board and kind of really make sure that they're taken care of and get the benefits that they want that actually help everyone succeed. As you can tell, it was 2019. So not very long into my tenure as that at that position, COVID hit, and I still am not quite sure if I've ever seen a normal year. So it was a lot of learning on the go. COVID hit, we had to cancel horse shows. We launched a webinar series. Actually, tomorrow I'm running our 87th episode. It has continued. We run it every January through March in the cold weather series, just try to keep people active, and I've made some incredible connections through that. We have now done virtual horse shows. Learning curve. We revamped our website. I had absolutely no experience in website whatsoever and just kind of got handed this, and we need it to be better. Let's find out. I have regrets. I'm currently actually trying to find us a new company to put our website with, that will help manage our database and things like that. It's just, it has been a never-ending learning curve, and it's something that we don't have. This is a volunteer-run organization. Volunteerism is down in the industry. We don't have a lot of people. I'm relatively techie, and therefore this is mine, right? And I have and I'll give it a shot attitude. And I've learned a ton, and I have learned that I don't love what I did in the beginning. So we're going to go back and redo that. I've attended a number of conventions with the United States Dressage Federation, which have been incredibly educational. There's very important conversations. It's incredibly expensive. So I'm grappling in my head this challenge of how do I get more people to convention to accurately represent to our leadership what's going on? And yet it costs so much money. It doesn't make sense. Again, volunteer engagement is down everywhere, but it's vital to our industry. Dressage is one of the few Olympic sports that is run by the volunteers. The paid staff at the USDF answer to the volunteer leadership, the volunteer, members, the membership of, amateurs coming up. It's really fascinating. It's a unique opportunity, but when volunteer numbers go down, it suffers. And there's a lot of navigating political relationships. So, for example, the IOC is the International Olympic Committee. The FEI is underneath that, and they manage all the planet-wide equine stuff. The USEF answers to the FEI about the United States horse everything. The United States Dressage Federation answers to the USEF about all the dressage stuff. And then the GMOs, which are group member organizations like NEDA, then are the ones on the ground with actual members trying to do the work and figure out how to influence all these people back up the chain to the international level to get what we need to be successful. We want our riders to fulfill their dreams and get to the Olympics. I would still like to get to the Olympics, and there's a lot of great things going on, but it's a lot of personalities to navigate. More challenges with this particular position. Horse people, we are not easy. Dressage people also are not easy. So we have a lot of connection with our membership, and my job is kind of to hear what the membership wants. And then also with my education brain, know that what they want isn't necessarily always what is actually needed. So how do I sneak that stuff in together, right? So how do we get the boring educational stuff in with the fun things that everyone wants to do already? I'm sure you in school are very aware when that goes badly and doesn't work, it sucks. And that's always something that I think about. Safe sport has a lot of negative perceptions right now with leadership. I don't mean national leadership. It's very well supported in the industry. But when you have kind of old school volunteers who have to go through safe sport training, they get a little grumbly because these aren't horse people. What do they know about our sport? They're necessary. We need to make sure that everyone moves through this industry in a safe environment that supports them. And safe sport is absolutely the way that we are moving in this country. So I have to make that also one of these things that everyone likes when they don't necessarily want to have to do another online training. The social license to operate is a really fancy term that's going around a lot right now. It's basically this idea that the public judges what they see, whether they're knowledgeable or not. So if the public looks at someone riding a horse with spurs and thinks how terrible that is for the horse, and then they see it being done terribly, the idea for that person now is that everyone in the industry does it terribly. So the leadership is coming to us and saying that, like, the actual recommendation is the way you treat your horse every single moment of every single day. If you can't do that in the middle of Central Park with your mother watching, don't ever do it. That is the standard of ethics. Every single person who has a horse, who handles a horse, who manages animals, that is how you have to behave. because it's right, because it is dangerous to lose control of our industry. So right now, that thing with the Spurs, there was a push in Los Angeles County to ban competition wearing of Spurs in competitions. Which is fine and dandy. Los Angeles is its, that county is its own entity. It can make its own laws. We're about to try to have the Olympics in Los Angeles. How are we going to have the Olympics in Los Angeles when it is illegal to wear Spurs? So there's very, very real challenges trying to get, the social goodwill along with our industry and keep people educated without knowing that we're educating them, making it fun, making it obvious. And certainly, NEDA was, as I mentioned before, the first to establish that helmet rule. What's our stance? We're leaders historically in these kinds of challenging areas. So what do we have control over? How do we influence everyone who's outside of our organization? All these kinds of things. This is what keeps me up at night, right? Like these challenges never end. And we need support for our support system. So I want in the future to have subsidized memberships for barn staff. So if you're just a barn staff member, if you're just someone mucking the stalls, I want you to also have access to all the educational stuff that I have, because maybe you want to run horse shows someday. Maybe you want to be a technical delegate at a horse show. All of this talent that is just kind of left in the barn aisleway because they can't afford a membership. I want that. I want them to do better. Continuing education for teaching practices. Horse people can be great trainers. Horse people can be great teachers. It is very rare when you get someone who's naturally talented at both. So how do we get our wonderful trainers education in how to teach better without offending them? Because they're very talented and they're very wonderful. It's just something that we need to normalize. Everyone should be trying to get better all the time, like we all are. How do we take people who are naturally great teachers, but actually could use a little more education in the training piece? How do we do that without making them look like they're not worth paying money to when their livelihood matters? So again, show managers, that's an area right now that I think a lot about. There's not really, it's hard to make money at a horse show. Not a lot of people can run a horse show well. And if you do, there are a limited number of people who run a lot of horse shows. And I think that's an area that we really could have a booming industry in. I don't mean we, NEDA, I mean the United States, like you as young people, if you're really highly organized and you love to run things, get into show management. Because there's not a lot of options out there. We have maybe 2 or 3 when NEDA runs horse shows, we have 2 or 3 people to pick from. And that's, if we don't like them, we still have to pick one of them because we have to run the horse shows. So there's a lot of opportunity there too. Those are the challenges that keep me up at night. I will say being involved as a volunteer on the board is one of the most rewarding things I've ever done with my life. I get to go out and see members who are competing and trying to achieve their goals. We have incredibly high-end trainers come. We had Charlotte Dujardin come to teach a couple years ago. We had Carl Hester come the year before last year, and then last year we had Kira Kirkland. Just an incredible amount of people coming through and a wealth of knowledge. I get to give awards, year-end awards out to like my youth committee, who are busting their butt and just really trying their best. And I get to recognize them with awards at the end of the year. I get to learn from people. This is Sally Davenport and Lois Eukins, who's on the committee who writes the new dressage tests every year. I learn so much just from talking with them. It's an incredible opportunity. This is one of our members, Shannon, who just actually used one of our scholarships that we got to award her to go over to Europe to ride in Carl and train at Carl Hester's barn. So she is aiming for the Olympics soon with a lovely horse, and we were able to help her with that. Our webinar series, this is Laura Graves, who was an Olympic gold medalist for us a couple of years ago on a horse that she bred and trained herself, and her mom joined and talked to us about what it took to support. We just get to contact and share stories from really wonderful people. It's a great opportunity to get to share all of that. And of course, we get to run horse shows. And this is my surly show manager, Paul. Um, and, we always going around drumming up volunteer help in our own ways. Paul is a very, Paul's leans into his grumbliness. It's kind of his brand. Whereas I kind of go around and, hey, what a great day. And isn't this great? Wouldn't you like to come help? And both work with certain people. So it just takes all kinds, and you have to be able to work with people. So that's kind of where I'm going to come to this piece of, what worked for everyone. And I'm going to wrap this up really quickly. So, what got me through all of these different, 20 years or 30 years, I don't want to talk about how many years, of all these things. This I shared before, the empathy, the listening, all of these things that matter across all of these positions. This is the stuff actually that keeps you in a successful career. I did not get the jobs that I got because I was super athletically talented. I got it because I was a really hard worker who paid attention to details and was curious about how to do it better every single time. That's just an example. These are the kinds of things that you really need to focus on. This will keep you relevant to all of these jobs. I'm going to say to exceed at them, go a step further. This is also not horse specific stuff, but this is, so important to being someone who's reliable and moves up the ranks in any career. Um, Difficult conversations is a huge one. You've got to be able to lean into talking about hard things and practice it, because it isn't easy. No one's a natural at it, and you can only get better by practicing. There's a lot of actual like tutorials and things out there on how to do these well. I would recommend like Coursera.org, edX, all those kinds of like business online classes. Like, you don't need to get a certificate. You don't need to pay $1 billion to go to a class. There's online modules of these top institutions out there for free, and you can just zip through them, just get some ideas on how to really move through these kinds of things. Negotiating, I think, is really underplayed, but it's basically the art of kind of seeing what everyone needs and moving to a decision that is going to make everyone a little bit happy. And everybody needs that. If you're in a vet clinic, you need that. If you're, trying to negotiate for, better shavings at the feed, at the feed store for your horses, and they're saying nobody else wants this, like, you need a way in to advocate for your animals. There's so many contexts where this stuff is complicated. Data analysis, that is a term that's thrown around a ton. You don't need to know algebra. Data analysis can be as simple as understanding that when the horses come in at 3 and the food is already, 5 horses were upset out of the 9 who were outside because their feed was late. That's data analysis. You are noticing numbers. It is objective. There's a trend. You're going to address it. That's a simple thing that can get very complicated, but you don't need the complicated version of it. You just need to be able to know, this is the data that backs up this decision that I've made, or this experiment that I'd like to run, or any of these kinds of, decision-making skills that you need as you move up in your career. I think a big one too also is be okay with being uncomfortable. If you want to grow, it's not fun. You've got to lean into being uncomfortable. You have to push your boundaries. If you reach a point in your career and you look around and you go, I can float at this for the rest of my life. That's amazing. That's great. Stay there. If you want to grow and become, something new, something more, you're going to have to push at your own boundaries. And this is kind of where it all starts. So, be a person who handles being uncomfortable. And then I would highlight these skills for you. This is not career-based. This is you. This is for your own selfish benefit. Goal setting is a huge, important skill. It's not just short-term, and it's also long-term. So know where you want to go and what are the short-term goals that will get you there. Because you can't just float and take advantage of opportunities. You have to have some goals. Like, you do have to pay the rent, right? That's a goal. And you need to make sure that your life is set up so that you can afford the horse that you own, or you can afford to make the move to the barn that you want to train at, or any of those kinds of things. I want to address the work-life balance. I have had 2, if not 3 careers running simultaneously at all times. I am strongly of the opinion there is no work-life balance. You have the same amount of time as everyone else. There's no balance. I am sitting here with you because I have prioritized this. I am not 20% here and 20% at work and 40% spending time with my family. I'm 100% here. So really it's prioritizing. Nobody else has more or less time than you do. It's just about understanding your goals and prioritizing them, because it's not just, your professional goals. You need to have personal life goals too. Make sure that your goals are the ones that will make you happy. The budgeting thing, that's not just money. You're going to need, with this work-life fake balance and prioritizing, you're going to need to understand that you have a finite amount of time. You have a finite amount of time that you can focus. You have a finite amount of energy and patience. And that is for this hour. That's for the day. That's for this week. That's for the year. Don't be unreasonable to yourself about what you think you can accomplish. Be really realistic with yourself, and save what you need of those resources for your priorities in this work-life balance. And your support system. I'll come back to, the way my personal life impacted my career there in the beginning. I've gotten much more clear about my priorities with the people around me, so that everyone around me understands where my priorities are at. And if they're not supportive of that, they can select out of my life. These are, this is what I value. These are my priorities. This is the goal I'm aimed at. If you want to support this, if you want to say you support this, that's wonderful. Make sure they actually support it in actions, because words don't keep you sane. You need to have actual support in your life. And again, I'll just come back to this, just one more time. It's not all straight line. There's a lot of squirreling around when you move through your journey, and that is okay. That is still success. I look at it as, I didn't get to the gold medal yet, but I got to do things I never even thought to put on my bucket list. I missed out. I wasn't smart enough to know that I wanted to do all this cool stuff. And now I get to do it because I just took advantage of opportunities, because there's no way to know everything that this world can offer you, but you shouldn't miss out on it either. So just know that both of these pathways are completely appropriate. And with that, I think I have talked so much. I apologize. I'm happy to take any questions that came up. If there's something you're not comfortable asking here, you want to reach out to me via email, or if there's something that wasn't clear to you and you want to talk later, if something you're thinking about years from now you want to talk about, reach out to me. I'm happy to talk. Bree, I don't know if any questions came in.
I didn't get any questions yet, but please feel free to put them in the chat. We got a lot of "this was awesome" and "thank you" and an amazing story. So thank you so much, Dawn. I learned things today myself, so that's exciting to learn more about somebody you knew everything about. So
yeah, for those of you who don't know, Bree and I, Bree is one of my best friends. We went to grad school together, and all kinds of fun adventures. So yeah, it was fun to do this.
How did you find opportunities to work with horses at a young age?
Yes. So it is much more challenging now, due to liabilities, and, legal concerns and things like that. I cannot stress enough how important it is to be willing to volunteer. What is going to get you through the door right now is if you're willing to do the hard work no one else does. If you're willing to show up even as a young kid and say, teach me how to muck stalls, or let me go fill holes in the pastures with rocks, that is going to be so valued that you are going to get a leg in. I mean, everything about this industry is you put back what you get out of it. So if you have a trainer who is just, tired of the people who show up and want to have their cool ride and then leave and don't help at all, when you show up and your priority is to help and to learn, that is going to be very valuable to them. You're going to get opportunities that other students won't get, because you are there day in and day out. You are reliable, you are dependable, you're all those things that we shared before, right? These people see the value that you're putting into their organizations and into their work, and they're going to feed it back to you. So I'm going to tell you, it's not going to be pretty in the beginning. It's going to be hard work. It's going to be the stalls and learning how to clean the tack, and it's going to be maybe, learning how to treat thrush and all the gross things, right? But you're going to be so much more valuable from it. It's the hard work. It's the hard work and the gross kind of like the stuff no one else wants to do that makes you more and more valuable because no one else will do it. I hope if that helps.
Thanks.
No problem. Happy to be here. So.
All right. Any other questions tonight? Well, Dawn, thank you so much. This was incredible. This is exactly what we are looking for in these kinds of things, and trying to just get people understanding the realisticness of having a career period, and then also having a career specifically in the equine industry, which has its own unique nuances. So thank you so much. If there, just checking one last time, lots of thank yous, lots of this was great, very inspiring. So thank you, Dawn.
Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
And everyone else, Jess will be reaching out to you guys about next week's and all of that stuff. You can direct questions to her. And if you would like to get in touch with Dawn and didn't jot down her email, feel free to reach out to Jess or myself and we can connect you to her. All right. Have a good night, everyone.